Welcome to the Richmond Leadership Lab, featuring business and nonprofit leaders across Richmond, Virginia. Produced and hosted by Filmspire and BenX.
Welcome to episode 6 of Richmond Leadership Lab. I am one of the co-hosts, Christian.
I'm Taylor.
And we couldn't be more excited. I mean, to have Mr. Benusa in the seat today, who's a friend of mine, a guy who's been in Richmond for a while, built a great company. Kyle, thanks for joining.
Yeah, man. Happy to be here. Thanks for doing this.
Welcome to Richmond's #1 podcast. Don't look it up. Just trust my word
I
for
read
it.
that somewhere.
Yeah.
Last podcast episode, it was 1.3 million.
That makes sense.
Views, yeah.
Richmond Business will not cover it until you sign a lease somewhere or you
Until we
open
pay-
up a storefront.
Until we pay $4,000 a month.
Yes,
True.
and then you will be everywhere.
Right.
If we pay them,
Yeah.
we will be everywhere.
There you go. And funny enough, they're in this building, top floor. So,
I hope they hear this.
yeah, exactly.
Anyways, Ballast Consulting, Richmond Business Sense.
Yep.
Exactly.
So we're going to talk a little bit about you specifically for a few minutes, your background, where you grew up, all that fun stuff.
Okay.
And then we want to talk about Ballast. So highlight Ballast, what's the mission, what's the vision of the company that you guys have created. And then also at the very end, the third part of it of the agenda, we're going to talk about just some lessons you've learned in the last 8 years since you've started. Was it 8 years ago? 7?
Going up on 8, yeah.
Wow.
So so we'll ask some like leadership lessons, business lessons, all that fun stuff.
Sure.
So for starters, tell the people who you are.
Sure. My name is Kyle Benusa. I'm one of 5 siblings. I'm right in the middle. I am a 5th generation entrepreneur, small business owner. So my great-great-grandfather had his own business. My great-grandfather had his own business, which he then sold to my great-uncle. So growing up, we would go to the bakery in Little Falls, Minnesota. My grandfather, his son-in-law, had his own business. My dad has his own business, all different. And then my mom, brother, aunts, uncles, godparents, and cousins all have their own business. So I grew up.
That's
it's wild.
crazy.
Yeah.
I grew up in small business, and I hated every minute of it. It's really hard in small business, and I think this will resonate with a lot of the viewers, to really separate your personal life from the business. And so as a kid living in that environment, it's impossible for your parents, those entrepreneurs, to separate business from personal. So like there were times when money was tight because business wasn't good. There were times when money was fine because business was good. I mean, it was impossible. And so there was always these conversations at home. So you grow up and you're like, God, I just want my parents to have a normal job. Like I just want them to have a 401k.
9 to 5.
Like we don't have dental insurance. Why don't we have dental insurance? Like why? All everyone else has dental insurance. What is dental insurance?
We can help with that.
Right. But you grow up in that environment, and like I said, you hate it. And then at some point in my career, which, I mean, we don't need to go through all the details, but at some point in the career, I realized I really missed it, and it was a fundamental part of who I was, and I was really angry and mad, and I had a chip on my shoulder. And by God, I was going to go back and help small business owners. And it was in my heart, and so I started Ballast Consulting Group. So it was go ahead.
And so you grew up here?
I grew up in Powhatan. Went to J.B. Watkins in Midlothian until I was 6, if we're getting very specific. And then moved out to Powhatan. I was in Powhatan until I went to college. And then I went up to Charlottesville, finished up, came back to Richmond, and I've been here ever since. So I've been here since Richmond, technically, since 2009?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Wow.
Yeah.
So went to UVA.
I was in
I
the
love how you
fan.
referred to it as Charlottesville, by the way.
Yeah, well.
That's
That's
funny.
Well, I was referring
I
to
went to
towns, right?
Yeah.
I lived in the fan when there was no Scott's Edition, and like when you were the cool kid, you lived in the fan. I don't think that's the way it happens anymore.
No, you're kind
think
of a
so.
loser.
Like if you're in
now.
the fan, you're like, oh man, you must be tight budget, huh? But when we were young, when we were kids,
Yeah.
yeah, it was fun. What's next?
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
That's great.
So you went to UVA, you came back. When did you have it on your heart where you were like, hey, I actually want to get back to this? Because you didn't start off from UVA starting a company.
No. So I worked for a family office in Richmond. We bought 2 companies. Neither one went the direction we wanted to go, so we got really, really involved in operations. So my boss got heavily involved in one, I got involved in the other, and it was a manufacturing plant down in Florida. It's called Shapes Precision Manufacturing. So I was like 26 years old, 27 years old, and I was put in as the CFO so I could sign checks, and I was traveling down there, and I spent 6 months kind of investigating this business and walking the floor. And it was awesome. It was unbelievable. It was the best experience of my life because I was this kid and I was dumb enough to just tell everyone I was dumb, and I asked them stupid questions. And all of these old guys on the floor would take me under the wing and they would teach me an absolute ton. But after 6 months of kind of investigating the business, I had a mentor. His name is Doug Monk, awesome guy from Noonan, Georgia. He was on the board with one of the family office members. And he said, look, Kyle, in his amazing voice, Kyle, he said, if you can't put this on one fucking piece of paper, then you don't know what you're talking about. Yeah. So I went back to the family and I had one piece of paper and I laid out the plan. And I never in a million years thought that they would say yes to the plan. The plan was basically get rid of the president, get rid of his son. They were good people, but they weren't a fit for the business at the time. Get rid of the sales team, elevate the engineering group. This contract, which the existing team absolutely loves, is terrible. We're losing money. Get rid of it. These contracts, which we think we hate, we actually love. They're wildly profitable. We should do more of that work. Here you go. And they were like, hey, that's pretty cool. You should go do that. I was like, yeah.
And this was before ChatGPT for the people who were listening.
This was before ChatGPT.
And also 26, right?
I was like maybe 27. I'd have to look back. 26, 27.
26,
27. It was just
27.
like stupid, you know.
How did that feel at that age?
It was unnerving. It wasn't unnerving in that moment because I was just an analyst giving a review of a business. I didn't know what was going to happen at the end of the conversation. At the end of the conversation, John and Sam looked at me and they were like, you should just go do that. I was like, we should go find someone to do that. They're like, no, you should go do that. You've asked the right questions. Everyone seems to trust you. Go do that. So they put me in as president. So I was 27 at that point. It was January of 20, oh God, what year was this? 2013. And so for the next 4 years, I turned this plant in Florida around. And I was on the JetBlue flight. So you asked when I had it in my heart to start Ballast. It was after I had hit my head against so many walls trying to fix this business and had some successes, had some terrible losses, but got it moving in the right direction. And we landed a bunch of great contracts. And it was moving in the right direction, but the plant was going to be full. Basically, there wasn't enough for me to do at that point. And I was just a burden. I mean, I was still just this kid with I was full of piss and vinegar. There used to be a direct JetBlue flight, and I'm on the JetBlue flight back. And it was like for 4 years, just traveling back and forth. And you feel like you're pouring yourself into this business, but it wasn't my community. You know, it was like in the grocery store on the weekends, I wasn't running into people that I saw on the plant floor. That wasn't my home. That wasn't my community. So it was that moment. I was like, I figured it out. Did it hurt? Yeah. Did I make a lot of mistakes? By God, I made a lot of mistakes. But if I could do this where I live and feel good about what I do, and I could look people in the eyes at the grocery store and church on Sunday, like walking down the street, people that I help, that would be pretty fucking awesome, pardon the language. And so I decided to do it. And I went in. The family is amazing, and I still have a great relationship with them today. And I resigned, and they were like, you're an idiot. I'm like, I know. I'm sorry. They were like, this is a great gig. John laughed, and he was like, you're telling me that you don't need to work 40 hours a week, and I'll continue to pay you the same amount, and we really like you. I mean, you are an idiot sometimes, but we really like you. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, you're an idiot. But good luck, man. That's great.
Too much vinegar.
So 2 weeks after, too much piss and vinegar. 2 weeks after having that hard conversation with him, and I was supposed to resigning, we found out we were pregnant.
Convenient timing.
It was convenient timing. 2 weeks later, we found out it was twins. So I took on my first client. I was like, oh my God, I have to make this work. First client that I took on.
At Ballast.
Not at Ballast. So
Okay.
This was in 2017, 2 years before Ballast.
Okay.
So I had this idea to figure out how to fix finance and accounting for small businesses. It was this high-minded. I had this theory that other groups weren't doing it well, and that there was something fundamentally wrong with this. And when I looked back at my grandfather's business, my dad's business, my aunts, my uncles, none of them they didn't have high finance. They didn't have good, solid finance and accounting. And I wanted to figure out why that was the case. And again, at this point, we didn't know we were pregnant. So this idea was I'm going to go figure that out. I'm going to go build great finance and accounting for small businesses. First client I took on, I kid you not, he was recently in Richmond Business. He's in prison.
Nice.
I walked in. We may have to cut that part out. I walked in and I said, all right, it's day one and I'm ready to start. I said, can you get me access to your books? And he laughed. He goes, yeah, we don't have those. I was like, what do you mean you don't have? They're probably ugly and, but let me see them. Let me have them. He's like, no, we don't have those. And he walked over and he dropped a stack of paper on the desk and he goes, if you're as good as you think you are, you'll figure it out. And there was 2 years of bank statements with check images.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, all right, here we go. So from scratch, working half days for that. That was my first client. I rebuilt their books from scratch, 2 years, built up everything. And at the end of it, I put together financials, and I went and sat down with him and I said, hey, so-and-so, you've got $4 million of assets and $5 million of liabilities. And he's like, yeah, that sounds about right. I'm like, you're underwater by a lot of money. He's like, yeah, let's find out how to fix this. There was no way to fix it. Mm-hmm. So that first client, after I left, found out we were pregnant, found out it was twins, after 2 weeks, found out it was probably not going to work out. So spent the next 2 years taking on projects, working with other entrepreneurs in Richmond, and finally figured out the recipe and figured out what it looked like. Decided to scale it. So I had 4 clients at that point. It was working really well. I reached out to my best friend, Adam Hahn, who was at, I suppose it was BB&T back then before it was Truist. He was an investment banker. I was like, oh, man, this is working. I've got this little process together, and it's having a massive impact on these businesses. Let's go build a business around it. And he was like, I can't. I've got golden handcuffs, basically. I've got a good job. You're crazy.
And that's what you want to do to people now.
Yeah. So I said, that's exactly right. So I said, all right, well, I need someone to do this with. I can't do this alone. He said, call Jack. Jack was his analyst that he trained at Truist. So then I went and had a beer with Jack, and that night we shook hands. We're like, let's go start this business.
That's crazy.
So then that was January of 2019. We went from 4 clients to 6 to 8. After 8, we were each covering 4. It was like, all right, we can replicate what Kyle's doing. That's good. It's working. His clients were super happy. He had some serious impact with the 4 that he was with. So we had the 8. Then we figured out, well, we need to scale. We need to bring on an employee. Can we get some type of leverage, like operating leverage within this business? So we hired our first employee, our second, our third, our fourth, just started to build the team out. And then COVID hit, which you can imagine. So that was 2020, early 2020. Mm-hmm. And then we skyrocketed out of COVID. It was like everyone all of a sudden saw the value of actually knowing if they were profitable and understanding how to navigate working capital.
We don't want to shut down.
Yeah. Oh, my God. And so we skyrocketed out of COVID. And then today we're at 25 employees. We've got 60 clients over 17 states.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Wild.
Yeah. That's a big jump from the first client that you had working 4 hours a day.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
That's wild. Kyle, so can you tell us, for people who don't know Ballast, can you just kind of give us the elevator pitch on your company?
Sure. So Ballast is a consultancy. We're a consulting practice, a consulting firm. We are very much focused on finance and accounting and focused on small business. So the whole concept, the whole idea behind our business is we think that the primary source of good data for small businesses lives within their accounting system. And big business has access to Bloomberg and IBIS and other databases, and they can pull this information, they can see what their competitors are doing, and they can understand it, and they can analyze it, and then they can proceed and make amazing decisions. Well, small businesses don't have that. And so if that's true, and you want to consult for small businesses, you need good data to consult for small business. And we thought, well, man, if we could own that good data, we could drive a lot of incredible material improvements in these businesses. Well, I guess we better learn how to build a firm that does the finance and accounting for small businesses. And so we scaled up an organization that owns the finance and accounting functions and processes for small businesses. And then we leverage that to help entrepreneurs and owners and operators drive progress and growth and innovation in their businesses.
What is a ideal client for you guys?
So it's one of 2 groups. If it's a startup, generally need to have taken about $1 million of funding, outside funding. That's the point when the investors go, okay, this is enough money. You need to professionalize. And then operating businesses doing, revs easy, 3 to 60 in rev. Depends on the industry, obviously, with margins. Let's say earnings of 1 to 4 in earnings. That's when there's enough value from really good finance and accounting that you can start to drive serious changes.
And a couple important notes, I think. You guys are not a fractional CFO, just a straight group, and you're not a CPA firm.
No.
Right?
No, you're right.
I bet you had a bunch of, because your dad owns a CPA firm, I bet you had a bunch of interesting conversations with you and your dad, right?
Yeah.
Because it's he ran a CPA firm.
Yep.
You're like, we want to do something similar, but obviously not the CPA firm. So talk how you guys are a little different.
We're still having this interesting conversation. I still have it with my dad.
Yeah.
This comes back to when we launched Ballast, we wanted to do it differently. We thought there was a market problem. There was a gap. So when you're a small business and you want professional finance and accounting, there's usually 3 approaches you can take. You can either try and build it yourself, you can go to a staffing firm, or you can go to a CPA shop, generally. Mm-hmm. And let's go through what those 3 look like. Building it internally is generally using an internal resource and then educating them, giving them the experience, training them up, and they fill that role. and eventually they outgrow it. A staffing firm's obligations and requirements are to find you the right person. So like there's a bunch of great staffing firms in town.
Yeah.
There's some that focus on IT. There are clients. Some in human capital is like a perfect example. Prospect Blue is a client. They're a staffing firm. They're really good at it. Fahrenheit is a competitor to ours, and in Richmond, they're a staffing firm. So their obligation is to find you the right person and fill that role.
Right.
Sometimes you pay them a fee up front, direct hire, and sometimes you contract, and they take a spread on that individual, and that's how it works. And then the third option is a CPA practice, which is obvious to I think everyone in the room. Compliance-based work, tax work, or audit
Tax
work.
returns,
right?
yeah.
So like in town, that's Kiter or Meadows or Card. And so we thought the first option, which was the internal resource, it just doesn't scale well. And that's really actually incredibly difficult and not, how do I say this? It's not kind to the internal person. They didn't ask for that. Generally, they got leveraged into a position. They want the growth. They're generally over their skis because there's just too much, and everyone just keeps dumping shit on them, right? So like treated like mushrooms. That's not fair to them. The second resource, staffing, I don't think works well for small businesses in finance and accounting, because when you have a staffed resource, the company that you hire to find the resource doesn't manage that person once they're in. So the obligation to manage that individual falls on these small business owners. Well, the small business owners don't know what good finance and accounting is. So how are you supposed to possibly manage that person?
Right. Good point.
And even if they're an exceptional individual that you find and they're really, really good and they can self-manage, they're playing on one level. They're operating and doing one type of finance and accounting. So they're either a bookkeeper or an accountant or a controller or a CFO, but they are not all four of them. I mean, it's impossible for one person to play all four roles. And those are all fundamentally different in finance and accounting. And the world thinks they're the same, and they're not. And so with us, we said, listen, we need it to be a scalable function. We need it to have those layers that we just described, but we need it to be bundled up together as a single managed service for those clients so that we can scale and provide them those services over time. But that's a really hard thing to put on a website. So we still have
Hard to say all that.
Marketing
Yeah.
firms.
So we work with Avenue, who's our marketing firm, and even they were like, "Man, that's a mouthful, Kyle." I was like, "I know, but that's the truth." So I need you to find a way to say
One
it.
page.
Yeah, on one page.
Yeah.
Doug
Exactly.
Monk.
All on the business
So
card
we're
too.
still having that conversation. And people being like, "What are you?" I'm like, "Oh, we're a consulting firm."
Right.
What are you? Are you a fractional CFO? Well, we kind of do that. Well, what are you? I'm like, so at the end of the day, what we're looking for, small business owners who want to drive improvements and changes in their business. Like, we do not work well with businesses that are steady Eddie, fixed, not changing. Generally, they can look in their bank account and know what's going on. We work really well with businesses where they can no longer look in the bank account, have confidence in what's going on in the business. They're trying to drive improvements, trying to make changes, and they're just hitting walls constantly. They don't know where to turn. And so what we do is we come in and we overhaul that finance and accounting function. We own all that data. And then once we have it, we have incredible insights. And we can compare it across the other 59 clients. And we understand the industry and the business model. And then we can provide guidance and support to clients. Like I know you interviewed Megan the other day, who's a new client, and help them build their businesses towards their goals.
Yeah. But for you guys as a consultancy, like even the recent article that you wrote, right? Innovation versus scale.
Yeah.
Right? Like that is not a conversation I feel like that definitely a CPA firm, of course, but even a fractional CFO role is filling, right? They're not looking at a business and saying, what's the cost of innovation or what's the cost of non-innovation, right? That was a pretty good article.
Thanks. I appreciate that. That one took me a while. That was in my head for a long time, trying to chew through that with Jack.
I love how you guys debate too.
Constantly.
So do you do it on purpose? Like, does Jack play the devil's advocate on purpose, or do you like?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think we would love to tell you that we were very thoughtful. That we're just argumentative jackasses. What we found, though, honestly, is it was like back in the old days. It was just me and him. It's a very efficient way to come to a conclusion. So, like, I'll come up with something. Okay, I can do a lot of research and we can really think through this. And it's like, no. I'm going to walk you through. That's a dumb idea. And I'm going to be like, well, I'm going to tell you why it's an amazing idea, you know? And we've gotten good at that. It's like sparring. It's like boxing.
Yeah.
And you spar until you're both kind of exhausted. When you're done, you're like, yeah, you're right. That was a pretty shitty idea. I'm not going to proceed, you know? It's incredibly efficient, but you have to be vulnerable in those conversations. You have to be willing you have to be willing to hold on to an idea and a concept with such conviction that you're willing to get bloody in a fight having that conversation, but also when you lose, be like, yeah, man, that was a bad idea, and walk away from it. And that's a really difficult skill that I think I wouldn't even call it skill. It's like being numb. It's something that I have. It's something that Jack has, and I think we naturally fell into that, and it allows us to be really, really efficient at coming up with concepts and ideas.
How do you recommend someone who doesn't have a partner like that?
I think you need to have a partner like that. I think you can hold two competing ideas in your head, but I think it's very difficult for one individual, for those two competing ideas, to beat each other up in a conversation to come to a reasonable conclusion. Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think
we should do this. Well, no, we should actually focus on the process.
Whiteboard it. Yeah. I think you need someone, and whether or not it's a business partner, you need someone you can call and have those conversations with, whether it's an advisor or a coach or a guide or the relationship manager at Ballast. I mean, a lot of times our clients are on islands. They're alone, and they can talk to people within their business about specific elements of their business, but who do they talk to about the fact that the person they just talked to isn't performing? Mm-hmm. How do you have that conversation? So you can call us and you have that conversation, and we beat it up with you, and we run that same process. It's one of our core values is brutal transparency and honesty, and it's really hard for clients sometimes. More often than not, so we lose clients for one of three reasons. One, they're wildly successful and they transact and they leave.
Right.
We
had a mutual client that did that.
Yes.
Yep.
The other is they are unsuccessful. So a lot of our clients are startups, right? The third one is it's not a fit. Mm-hmm. And the ones that are not a fit, more often than not, it's because neither we or they are good or bad. It's that brutal honesty and transparency, your willingness to really beat the living daylights out of the business is really hard. And we do not have a good bedside manner. Like, we are just decidedly not, right? And so you can imagine you're talking to someone about their baby and you're telling them your baby is not that pretty and there's an issue and a problem. So that's the third reason that most clients, and I get it, existing clients that we no longer have, like, I love them as people. I love their businesses. We just probably weren't a fit for where they were at that stage. If that makes sense.
But now you guys are probably at such a point, 7 years in, you can identify that. Like 5 years ago, you could not probably.
No, we've gotten really, really good at the filtering and the scoping
and the qualifying
and the qualification.
Yeah,
which I think is an incredibly important thing that most small businesses miss. I'll send you a follow up too, but it's effectively like a funnel. You got to make sure that enough potential leads or clients or customers come in each month that you can say no to 85% and get down to that little kernel of 15%. You have to have a pretty serious deal flow and confidence to do that. And you know what? When you're young and all full of piss and vinegar, you think you can fix everyone's problems, right? When you're young and your wife is pregnant with twins, by God, you just need $1 of rev, right? So you take anything, and eventually you get to the point. The other thing that's incredibly important here is developing a team around you that doesn't chase rev as hard as you. And that's a fascinating thing that I've learned that I just didn't have appreciation for. I like rev more than my team, meaning like if a client walks through the door, high probability I'm taking that out to dinner. Like that is, they're not like that. They're really hard on me, and they will beat me up when I bring something back to confirm that it's right. That holds me honest. That keeps me honest. If it weren't for them, I'd have a 30% close rate. Because of them, I got a 15% close rate. Because that other 15%, I'm like,
they're Kyle, what are you doing?
I'm like, I got to go back to the office and tell them. They're like, it's not a fit. It's not a fit.
Talk to me about the different stages, because what's fascinating, like even me watching you guys, right? Because I started BenX in end of 2022, so we're coming up on 3 years this year. And it's like,
I remember the emails we were sending each other back and forth.
Yeah, when I first did.
Yeah, I was like, you better do this.
You're like, fuck yeah.
I literally said, fuck yeah. You don't do this, you suck.
Yeah. One of the things that's fascinating, though, it is very, very, very difficult, unless you've started a small business, to understand the different stages of business. It's like when people, the first thing is you start. Right, you and Jack get a beer, and then you're like, "Hey, here we go. Here's a good idea."
Yeah.
You probably look at the work you guys did 7 years ago, and you're like, "Oh my gosh, what were we doing?"
Yeah,
right.
Lots of mistakes. Yeah.
But there's so many stages in a small, and you guys work with a ton of small businesses that can't get past a stage.
Yep.
Whether it's people, whether it's process.
Yep.
How have you and Jack been able to go past multiple different stages of growth in a professional services firm?
All right, let's oversimplify.
Yeah.
First step in a business is to come up with a cool idea. Second step is to come up with a cool idea that's so cool you convince someone else that it's cool, right? Next step is they think it's so cool you convince them to pay you money to do it, right? Revenue. All right, so you're pre-rev and now you're revenue. Next step after that is to convince them to pay you more than it costs you to create and deliver that
right?
Margin, awesome. Next step is to get so many of those people to pay you that amount that you cover your overhead, profitability, right? Like, I know that sounds silly, but I think especially in this day and age with outside capital, especially in startups, you forget that you got to go through those stages, right? Because if everything was organically funded, you would be forced to go through the steps that I just described. You had to do that. You didn't take outside money, right? So you had to see a market need, say, I'm going to fix it. You had to convince someone to pay you money. You had to deliver that for less than what they're paying you in order to have margin, right?
Yeah. And for it to be good.
And for it to be good.
Yeah.
And what you were constantly doing is market testing.
Yep.
Like I know you were in your first 3 years. I'm sure you failed. I'm sure you underpriced. I'm sure you overpriced. Like the market is I am a free market capitalist. The market is an incredible means to test and iterate products or services. And unfortunately, what's happened in the market with so much outside capital is it's broken that because you no longer need that anymore.
No.
You're like, I'm going to just
a cool idea.
Yeah, it's like, I'm just have a cool idea, and they never go through that market function.
Yep.
So with Ballast, we didn't take any money. We didn't none, right?
Yeah.
We put in our own capital up front. I'd have to look back. I think Jack and I maybe put in $5,000 each. And what we really put in was massive reductions in our compensation, right? Like lifestyle. So thank you to Savannah and Lexi, our wives, for allowing us to do that.
For multiple years, not just a month.
Years. Like I was under what I was for years. But we had that market testing function, meaning that if we got something wrong, if we screwed up the product, and we were the guys delivering, right? If we screwed that up, we heard about it. If we were wonderful, we heard about it. If we overpriced, we didn't land it. If we underpriced, we never made money. So that allowed us for the first few years to navigate. The other thing I would say is we eat our own vegetables, or we take our own medicine. Every piece of financial information in Ballast, 100% transparency. The leadership team and our entire company knows our revenue and our profit. We do not hide a thing.
Wow.
We're transparent and we share it with them. Like everyone on the company knows. Each quarter we go and say, this is what we did in rev, this is what we did in earnings. The leadership team, the relationship managers, they literally have full comprehensive admin QuickBooks access, and they literally see how much money we make and gets taken out in distributions to pay even taxes. Full transparency. So we're held accountable in that regard. And that requires our data to be really, really clean. The other thing is very, very early. I mean very early. Like first employee hired early, we implemented a time tracking system. And when you implement a time tracking system, I know it's silly, but when you're professional services, guess what? Your pricing model might not be based on hours, but your means of production is based on hours. That's all you have are your hours. And if you have that data and you assign cost to that data and you force this cadence of reviewing that information, you have a constant feedback loop for what's working and what's not working. Our team is reviewing client margins every Monday. We have a 90-minute meeting Monday morning every single week. And it drives all of us nuts. Of course it does. But we go through a variety of matters. And one of them is like, are there clients where we have an issue? Is it a client issue? Is it a Ballast issue? Is it a fit issue? What's going on? That is how we navigated it. Each subsequent step, using the data, full transparency with the team, beating it up, challenging it, and saying we might be wrong, it allowed us to navigate those. Every single business, every single industry has these levels. You referred to them, right? It's like, in professional services, I would argue in our space, your space, probably tech development's a little bit different. It's like
Law firms.
It's like 0 to 1 in rev, 1 to 3 in rev, 3 to 5, and then the 5 to 10 are usually those like break points where things fundamentally change. We were blessed because we got to see our clients going through each of those subsequent stages and what they did well and not well, and we were able to then run back to the mothership and have conversations about what we wanted to do and what we wanted to avoid. So like, I would love to tell you, we're just really smart and hardworking. That's only partially true, and devastatingly handsome.
Yeah.
It's because we saw through our clients all of the things that they were doing right and the things that they were doing wrong, and we have a wonderful relationship with our clients. We love our clients. I mean, we love them like siblings, meaning like they drive you nuts, but like fundamentally you care for them, right? And they love us, and if we're screwing up, they will straight up tell you, right?
Yeah.
I had a call with a client this morning, totally different topic. Had a call with him this morning, and he says, "Hey, we got a few extra minutes." He said, "I think you need to take a little bit of your own medicine." I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, 6 months ago, you told me I was wrong about X, Y, Z. I go, "Yeah." He goes, "You're wrong about that now." And I was like, "Oh my God.
Was he right?
And I was
Her
like,
right?
TBD.
Yeah.
He was right. He was right. And I said, Jim, like, that hurts. He goes, I know it hurts, but suck it up. That's what you told me 6 months ago. And I was like, I said, why are you bringing this up? He goes, because I love you, man. Like,
Yeah.
you know, you told me and you had a material impact on my business, and I'm telling you. That feedback with other people, you know, I said you can't be alone in this.
Right.
We had that constantly with clients. There's no way we'd be where we are if we didn't have that feedback loop with clients. I mean, no way in hell we'd be where we are. If we didn't have clients like Jim or Jote or advisors like Satya, Jamie Christensen, like, just call us and go, you're screwing up. Let me tell you, you're making a mistake.
And just allowing that. How do you guys foster a community that allows that?
I think it comes back to
the transparency.
It comes back to the transparency, and it comes back to two boxers walk into a ring. One of them is going to win and one of them is going to lose, right? You talk to the boxer that goes in. They all want to win that fight, but they all know there's a 50% chance that they're not going to win that fight, but they still step into the ring. Does that make sense? Unfortunately, too many business owners and operators aren't willing to acknowledge when they go step into the ring every day, like, the 50% chance I'm going to be wrong. Knowing that opens up vulnerability to say, hey, I might lose this fight, and allows people to have that conversation. If you think that you're always right and you're unwilling to be wrong, no one's going to give you the feedback. They're just not going to. And every person that I work with professionally knows. Like Kyle, he is a confident, you know, like, he'll swing. He's kind of a pain in the ass. But all of them also know they have no issue telling me I'm wrong. None. Because there's moments where I'm wrong. I'm wrong half the time, more than half the time. And I also do that with our team. And it's an incredible thing when you have employees who look you in the eyes and they're like, that's a very dumb decision. You're like, wow. I mean, think about that. The person that's signing their check, right?
Right.
Really. Like, if I wanted to, I guess I could fire them. I never would because I love them and they're amazing. But that's an incredible, that they feel confident enough to go. I mean, Reed Mowbray, who's one of our... He
Great
tells,
guy.
me all the time. He's like, stupid. I'm like, well, I think you're stupid. You know?
A question so then regarding that, though, like, when you're hiring, interviewing people, how do you gauge that to find that out? Like, if they'd be a great fit for that, can deal with that brutal honesty, can provide that brutal honesty, because they're a stranger at that point, right? So how do you kind of gauge or investigate that?
We have, thanks to Jack and Jordan Reed, who's our people ops, and the rest of our leadership team have helped, we have an extraordinarily complex, difficult, multi-layered interview process for employees. And I'm sure we're missing people because of it. I mean, it's 4 or 5 steps.
Wow.
We have questions that are related to technical competence, which I think most people hire in technical competence. Half of our questions are based on leadership capabilities and questions around leadership capabilities. We went and walked through our core values as a firm, and then as a group, we came up with questions to hit on those core values. And then during the interview process, we asked questions related to those. And then each person that runs through the interview then has to present to me and Jack and the rest of the team on how the person scored and what their notes were related to that. So when someone finally gets through those final steps, it's a pretty good chance that person's a fit. Wow. Is it perfect? No, it's not perfect. And we have screwed up a lot of hiring. A lot of people were not a fit. We weren't a fit for them, but it's working. It's working.
And you guys pay for it too.
And we pay for it. The other thing I would tell you too is, you know, in the world, there was a lot of conversations on DEI for a while, and everyone was like, "Oh man, we're gonna really broaden the type of people we bring in our organization." And I think they went about it the wrong way. They looked at the way someone looks, and they said, "Yeah, you know what? That person looks different. They must think differently." One thing that we did by forcing that very regimented interview process, we also obliterated target schools. We obliterated any references within that process that most people would hire by, and subsequently it's purely based on technical capabilities and the way that they answer those questions. And a lot of people that started to get through that process, they didn't look like us. They didn't talk like us. And we got through it and we're like, yeah, but guess what? Objectively, they're fucking awesome. And what we've done by doing that is we have an incredibly diverse team now. And it was because of that interview process, because we held ourselves accountable to this very regimented framework that graded people based on these attributes and didn't look at them. I can't tell you how many times I will go into that final meeting. I haven't interviewed them. I haven't interviewed them. My team interviewed them. They present. I don't know their name. I didn't look at their resume, and I didn't pull them up on LinkedIn. And you might think, oh man, Kyle's so lazy. He didn't do his work. No, I trust my team. I trust the process. That's the interview. Tell me what you guys saw. Tell me what you think. I don't care about their race. I don't care about their gender. I don't care about the school that they went to. How did they answer the questions? And you would be amazed how many people get through that process and you're like, you know what? If I didn't have this process, they probably wouldn't have gotten through. It's incredible.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's how we're bringing those people in.
But
That's
having
amazing.
a specific system.
Yeah,
that
you
takes
got
it
to.
through.
I think you got to sit down. You got to walk through your values, list them out. Then you need to come up with questions related to those values. You need to come up with the technical competencies that are required for those roles, ask questions around them, and stick to it. You have to stick to it, because if you do not, what ends up happening, you're like, well, they weren't great at this, but he went to UVA. He's a good dude.
Charlottesville.
Charlottesville. He went to Charlottesville. He was from Charlottesville. He's going to do really well. And you're like, cool. He went to the right school.
Yeah.
Did you see how he answered those last 3 questions? Like, come on, guys.
What an idiot.
What a dum-dum. And it worked.
Yeah.
But back to holding me accountable, I cannot proceed hiring someone unless the team has rated them a certain level. Kyle can't overrule
Which is
them.
shocking. Think about another 25-employee company with the business owner at the helm, right?
Yeah.
If the business owner goes, actually, I like this guy or this gal or whatever it
Yeah.
might be. Like, there's typically, for a 25-employee company,
No, you're right.
there's not that process.
Yeah, we don't operate that way. You're right.
Yeah.
We do not. And I think,
I was actually having a conversation with a 90-employee company the other day. They were a client of ours, and they were like, yeah, the CEO just hired this intern.
you're like, come on, man.
Just
Come on.
straight up. And I was like, all right, yeah, well, there you go.
I don't know that there's ever been a moment where I said to the team, like, I'm never, unless there's a certain score, I just knew that I was accountable to them. If I brought someone in that didn't meet the requirements and that person failed, I got to look everyone in the eye. And remember, full transparent financials. So guess what? Everyone feels it when we have a bad hire. Like literally everyone. And they all look at me with their puppy dog eyes, and Kyle's the reason that we hired. I can't do that. It's terrible.
Yeah. So let's switch topics to touch on leadership.
Yep.
Let's talk a little bit about leadership, because even before we started this conversation, you said that your role is changing.
Yeah.
Right? 7 years in.
Yeah.
So, I mean, entrepreneurs, business owners, CEOs, whatever, their role is going to change.
Yeah.
How have you been able to develop as a leader? Because when it's just you and Jack, you're managing yourself, right? And then it's employees, and then there's systems and processes.
So the first thing I'll say is I'm a terrible leader. Like I'm not good at it. I never wanted to be a good leader. I'm not good at it. I feel a sense of obligation to improve how do I say this? Ballast is successful when our clients are successful and our employees are successful. And I can define what that looks like for both of you. I have an obligation to both of those groups. And if I'm not doing a good job, clients fail. And I know that high-minded. No. If I don't do a good job bringing in the right person, training them appropriately, and they give bad advice to a client, it is a possibility that someone goes without a paycheck. That's a problem. So you want to know how you hold yourself accountable to shifting and changing in leadership? When you hold that sense of obligation, you do not have a choice. You don't have a choice. How did I actually go through doing it? I surrounded myself with really smart, hardworking people that were willing to challenge me. And there were times when I had to lead from the front and say, no, this is really important, and this is why I think it is, and make my argument and get people to follow me. And there's a lot of times, and more often than not now, where I have to lead from behind by hiring those right people and saying, lead us in the right direction. And I'm here, and I'm back here, and I'm supporting you, but I'm not the one anymore striking that path. I think for me, the biggest change was 0 to 1, 1 to 3, 3 to, and we're roughly at 5 now, marching towards 6. 0 to 1 was crazy Kyle coming up with concepts and ideas, throwing anything at a wall. I'm sure you guys have been through it. It's like bare knuckle boxing,
totally.
The leadership style that was required there was like the willingness to just bleed constantly and not bitch and complain. I mean, like, let's be real. 1 to 3 was like being vulnerable, surrounding yourself with the right people, establishing structure, which guys like me hate, but they know it's a requirement, right?
Yeah.
And then 3 to 5 has been about letting go. And it's been about giving the people that we built that structure around the keys to say, I love you and I trust you, and I hope you make some mistakes, because that's how we learn. Go for it. Run with it. And that has been an incredible shift for me of leadership style.
We'll be right back after this short message.
Are employee benefits a headache for your company? At BenX, we simplify benefits so you can focus on growing your business. From custom benefit solutions to cutting-edge technology, we make it easy for companies to take care of their teams. Visit benxconsulting.com to see how we can simplify benefits for your growing company.
Your story is powerful, but is it reaching the right audience? At Filmspire, we create compelling videos and provide marketing strategies to make sure they drive real results. From crafting your message to amplifying it, we help you connect with your audience like never before. Ready to inspire? Let's tell your story.
And now, back to the show.
When you say you're a terrible leader, the self-awareness around that, why do you say that?
I'm terrible at setting expectations up front. I'm tremendously terrible at communicating effectively with individuals and setting those standards. I'm just moving too fast. I have my own communication style. I don't do well to empathize with the communication style of the person on the other side of the conversation. Like, I know that about myself. When I have conviction, I swing. The person on the other side might not respond to that, right? Like, so I know what the market needs. I know what the clients need, right? I'm good at that. I'm not the best at building the structure and the people around that organization with effective, clear goals that are communicated on a consistent cadence in order to execute. I'm not. I know that about myself.
So how do you compensate for those?
You hire
areas
people that are willing to
strengths?
do it. So that was the other part of this. Like, the people that we've hired for leadership look and talk nothing like me. I mean, like, nothing.
Not the rambunctious, confident, swinging.
They're incredibly confident, but so, like, let's go through who I'm describing. So Jack Allen is my partner. He's a lot like me. He's way more ops focused. He's very systematized and structured, and he's wonderful at those things. But you've met Jack. Like, we're very similar in that regard, right?
Yeah.
Like, we both like to spar. But then we have Jordan Reed, people ops. John Reed, who's a relationship manager director. Reed Mowbray, who's a director, who's been with us for a while. Jeb Bryan, and then Jamie Barron. None of them will speak without thinking first. I talk all the time before thinking. So, like, when they talk, I had to learn to shut up for a minute and go, they've really thought about this before they speak. They're compassionate, empathetic individuals, and our employees are responding better to them, which was an incredible thing to see. And then once you see that, you're like, oh man, mom needs to not be in the room right now, you know? Like, they're doing a better job of it. But
Humbling too.
It's so humbling. It's incredibly humbling. And that's scary. Like, there's a vulnerable moment of like, wow, am I even needed anymore?
I'm just going to go home now.
I'm just going to go, yeah. So no, that's how, I would say that's how I dealt with it.
Yeah.
I want to ask you a question. You started off the show talking about just like having a family of entrepreneurs and like that lifestyle impacting you as a young person and things like that, you know, like money good, money bad, you know, why don't we have dental, all that kind of stuff now. How are your father now? So what is that looking like for you, yourself, your family, anything like that?
Yeah.
Boundaries you might put in place or strengths with that? Tell me about what's that looking like for you now?
That's a really simple question, and if you have 4 hours, I think I can probably. So the first thing I would say is this. I think the concept of work-life balance for an entrepreneur is a myth, and I'm not sure that you should be marching towards that. And this is just me personally. I spent so much of my youth thinking that there deserved to be separation between work and life balance, and what you learn when you're the parent is that when you love what you do, of course you fucking take it home with you, right? Like, when you love what you do, you want me to separate from that at 5 o'clock and undock and come home? Abso-friggin-lutely not, right? So first thing I would say is I don't separate it. I love what I do. My mind is always thinking about work. Can't turn that off, won't turn that off. If you talk to my clients, I'll text them at 4:30 in the morning. Like, Casey Boutwell was one of our clients at Near Sense, and I texted him the other day, and I was like, man, he's not responding. He responded back, and he's like, bro, it's like 6:15. I mean, I'm always on. My wife's very similar. She's built the same way as me, so she's always on. So she's the COO of a startup out of Charlottesville, and they're kicking butt, and they're growing like crazy, and she's got a big team, and she likes to remind me she manages a bigger budget than I do, and I'm joking. She would never do that.
Yeah.
So how do we set the boundaries? I would say this. I'd say there's no way that I'm turning off the portion of my brain that thinks about work. I'm not doing it. So instead, for me, it was very physical. So I have an office at home. I have to pull my laptop out of my bag and set it up in order to work. It's not fully set. I know that's silly, but that's a barrier. That's like a thing that you got to set up, right?
Totally.
When I get home, I take my phone out of my pocket and I set it on the table by the front door upside down. I do my absolute best to do that for the first 2 hours.
I do the same thing.
You got to do it. You got to
do it upside down too.
And then I set a rule for myself. I make dinner for my daughters every night. Every night. I leave my office at 5, maybe as late as 5:05. I race home and I make dinner for my daughters every single night. And is it like fraught with like screaming and running around? Are there moments where I'm like, oh God, this is terrible? Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But those 2 hours, I'm fully dedicated to the girls. That's how I do it. Because when I wake up, my mind, I mean, I just told you, I'm like texting clients early in the morning. So I'm out the door. Sav, she's the inverse. She wakes up, she spends her hours in the morning with the girls. She says the exact same rule, but it's 2 hours in the morning.
Yeah.
2 hours in the morning, focused on the girls, not doing Slack messages for her team messages and not doing emails. Fine, got it. But just setting that boundary. And then once the girls go to bed, I can work. Doesn't impact them. I don't want them to feel me not there because I'm giving everything I can to my clients and my team.
So do you sleep, or is that afterthought probably? Yeah.
I think when you have kids, do you have kids?
I do.
How many kids do you have?
2.
And Christian, you have 17?
Yeah, 17. 17.
You learn how little sleep you actually need to function. You went through that? No, I sleep great now. We did just upgrade our youngest daughter to an actual bed. For the first 2 weeks, she was like sleeping in it. It was great. And then all of a sudden she got out, right? And she was like, holy shit, I can get out of my bed.
Yeah, I can do this freedom.
So now she's like 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock, midnight, hopping in. So no, I haven't been sleeping the past week, but generally it's fine. I can turn it off. Good. Yeah.
That's a skill.
That's
Yeah.
Can you not?
I don't know. Sometimes, most nights I can. Yes. But sometimes.
Is it because your mind is racing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. For sure.
Is that because you think that by spending your energy in that moment on the problem, you can solve it?
I used to.
But you can't.
Correct.
Yeah. That's how you turn it off.
Especially when I first started.
Of course.
I was just constantly, I literally wouldn't turn it off. From the time I woke up till the time I went to bed. Like, I could have been doing other things, of course, but like, I never turned it off for probably the first 2 years. Just like, not really.
I remember that.
Yeah.
That was really hard.
Yeah. And year 3 now, it's like, now I'm starting to set phone down, a little bit more boundaries, a little bit more stuff like that. Because, if it's 8:30 and I've had a long day, there's no productivity coming out.
No, and it's terrible ideas and thoughts, too. It's like
correct.
Not good. That's the other thing you learn. It's like the quality of those thoughts at 10 are fucking terrible. Like, it's probably a bad idea.
They seem good.
They do.
They seem great in the moment. Yeah.
They're like drunk thoughts. They're like, golly, I do look good in that shirt.
We should start a band.
Yeah.
Actually, screw benefits. I'm going to get in the rock band.
Line dancing? Yes.
What if we did, hear me out, benefits, dancing.
Christian, you're an idiot. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Amazing.
Oh, that's good. I know this has been such a great episode so far. I'm actually one more, unless you have another, I'm asking one more business question.
Yeah,
We're going to do a couple fun questions, a couple laughs. I'm going to end it with like vision and success.
Yeah, sure.
So like, how do you, like, what's the vision for Ballast?
Sure.
And then number 2, to piggyback off that, I guess the vision of your life, like how does Kyle Benusa define success?
Oh, man. So you hit on something really important. For a long time, I was my business was
Correct.
me, and I could not separate them. So that was I would argue that's a requirement of the first few years, right? Like, I learned to separate those. Ballast is so much more than Kyle Benusa will ever be. Full stop. And when you realize that, and when you realize you're holding your business back, and you really do love your employees and you love your clients, you have to remove it. That for me happened 12 months ago. That moment of like, whoa, Ballast is more than Kyle, and that's a good thing. And wow, I wish it the best of luck. Like, I'm involved, I'm participating, but it ain't me anymore. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
So it was really important. So it was important to separate the two. So now for the first time in the last 12 months, success for Kyle looks very different than success for Ballast.
But the first 6 years, it was very much dependent on.
Yeah. So let's start with Ballast. Success for Ballast is really, really simple. Success for Ballast is success for clients, success for the employees. Success for the clients, it's specific to the client. Are they trying to manage for cash flow? Are they trying to manage for earnings? Are they preparing for a sale? What do they want to do? And every single small business is different. So if you don't start there with a client and go, what are your goals? What are you trying to do? Let's work towards those. You actually don't know what the fuck you're doing. I'm going to argue.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people in town that do not start with that question. And I don't even understand how that works. If you're able to use, and it's not always the case, but if you're able to use the Ballast process and finance and accounting to drive that client towards those goals, that's a win. That's a success, and that feels good. I would say of the 60 clients we have today, vast majority of them that's working. Some of them are just too early in the process for me to make a determination. There are some where we're going to have to sit down with them and be like, you know what? We're actually not helping you. Like, we're just not. And I love that you're paying us this fee every single month, but we're actually not driving you towards that goal. I think holding ourselves accountable to that right there ensures that our clients are successful and we're successful with them. The next part of it is employees. What does employee success look like? I think too much of the world focuses on only one of three things, and we try our best to balance all three. So the first is growth and development. We owe our employees the opportunity to grow and develop in their role, which means they need to learn more, experience as much as possible, grow and develop in their careers. Like the habits you set in your 20s, right? That's what you're focusing on, really sets you up for your 30s, and that's where you leverage that. It's our job in those first 10 years to give them those frameworks to get there. So it's growth and development. The second one's compensation. Of course it is. I hope to pay my employees more money every single year than the year prior. I hope to overwhelm them. Can I do that? No, of course I can't do that. But I hope to. Like, it's so interesting. You talk to some people and they click the pay button and like, God, I'm paying my employees or not. I click and I'm like, I'm not paying them enough. Like I would, if I could pay my employees more, I would pay them more. There's never a moment where I think if I reduce that, I get to make more. I just don't think that way. Neither does Jack. None of the leadership team does. So the third thing is people call it work-life balance. I'm not going to call it that. Let's call it life fulfillment. Because some of them might like working 80 hours and they really like what they're doing. It's fulfillment in their job. If you have an employee that is getting the right mix of those three, and you have clients that you're helping drive towards those, and that's success for Ballast. Right? So like my job now is just making sure that those things are in place. Employees on average, total, are balanced. Clients feel like that success is happening and we're helping drive them towards the goal. That's a win for Ballast. That's a win for Ballast.
Yeah.
For me, I'm 38 years old. I love Ballast, and I'll work there as long as Ballast will have me. Like, to people listening, we don't have a board, we don't have outside investors. It's only owned by me and Jack. But Ballast is bigger than me. So if the leadership team feels there's value and I'm there. I'm committed. There's going to be a moment where they're going to look at me and be like, get out. It's going to happen. That company, that business is way cooler than me. It will absolutely outgrow me, and there's going to be a moment where they look at me and be like, you're holding me back. Is it next week? Probably not. Is it next year? Maybe. Is it 3 years from now? I don't know. It will happen at some point in time. So what does success look like for me? If my children are healthy, my wife is healthy, if I have enough money to put food on the table and I don't have to worry about that, I'm happy.
Yeah.
And I know that is like, you're like, oh my God, that is so simple. I'm not a communist. I'm not a socialist. It's not like I live in my 20s and like, I just need food. I mean, I am very motivated by all the things everyone else. But when you have kids and you go through it and you've cried and you've lost and you've bled, like at the end of the day, you know what? Roof over my head, food on the table. I'm the happiest I've been in years. If Ballast is successful and I can help it, that's awesome. That's success for me. I'm finally there.
That's
Great.
I'm finally there.
wow.
Yeah.
That was a drop the mic moment.
Yeah, I'm like,
exactly.
Watch, the team's going to be like, oh my God, we can get rid of him next week.
Yeah.
All we have to do is point at him like he did there.
So we're thinking 2027.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
think we can get rid of him.
So, but you didn't start Ballast with the vision of like, oh, I'm going to scale myself out of this.
No.
Like you started because
I think you're right. I don't
because I
think
think a lot
did.
of people, a big misconception is and I think a lot of entrepreneurs even do this when they've had success.
Yeah.
They go, oh, I knew. I knew when I started. It's like, no, you didn't. There's no way
No,
you knew.
I think that's bull. I mean, maybe. It would be bull if I said it. No, I didn't know what Ballast was going to be. We were agile. We were flexible. We moved, right? Like, how could I possibly tell you that I knew that it was going to be, what it was going to be today? I didn't. I had no vision for that. If I was sitting back, you sent a preliminary question, said, hey, what would you tell yourself if you were wrong? I would never speak to myself when I was young. Like, I just would not do it for a variety of reasons, right? Like, I think that's a terrible idea. The experience I've had, maybe who I am, it's like that Back to the Future. I'm not going back to 1985. I'm not going to do that and screw it up. I would never do that. So when we started it, I probably had certain goals, certain objectives, and we achieved those. And then we put together goals and objectives, and we achieved those, and we put those together, and that was great, and that was awesome. But you're right. There was never a moment where I was like, man, I hope this thing outgrows me. My ego, my fragile ego in my early 30s could never have taken that idea. Does that mean we can be real and say that, right? I would have been like, fuck that. No, I'm Ballast. Ballast is me. I'm so fucking smart. Look at me. Right? There's no way.
Yeah.
It's amazing when you finally get over the hump, you know? And I hope to God all of our clients do, and every small business owner does. But no, I didn't start that way. You're right.
Yeah.
I didn't. You didn't either.
Absolutely not.
Are you there now?
My first goal was just make enough that I don't have to take a job.
Yeah, like, can I go home to my spouse and say this was the right call?
I mean, it was just, can we make enough money that can justify, like, I'm making half of what I was and I can live.
This is
like,
fine. I'm getting there.
This is fine. Yeah. That was my first goal. My first goal was like such a low,
Yeah, I think it was for all of it. I think it was like paycheck, right?
Right.
Can I just get paycheck?
Yeah.
And then you get a couple months of payroll in there and like it starts to loosen up and you can change it and move.
And you hire first employee and then it just.
And I also think it's not true of all business. I am blessed. We have an incredible business that is wildly impactful for a lot of people. And I mean wildly. We have supported people from nothing to the point that they are very, very wealthy. And it has been awesome. Like massive impact. Because of all of that impact and all of the employees that work for our clients, it outgrew me quick. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's not true of all businesses. Like had I started a different kind of business, maybe I wouldn't be saying that until the year 15. Ballast just took off and it worked so well that it was so much greater than me so quickly. Does that make sense? By like year 5 or 6.
Yeah, the service and the added value, essentially, what you bring to the market.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was wildly, wildly impactful.
Yeah. Well, good stuff.
Yeah.
You have any other business questions?
Man.
What do you got? Let's dig in. I got some serious things I want to talk about.
What do you want to talk about?
Well, I want to talk about you.
Yeah, what do you want to talk about? Good.
I want to talk about the podcast.
Okay.
I'm fascinated by the concept. It's a content-driven strategy.
Spot on.
In order to bring leads in.
Yep.
Okay. How many
top of the funnel stuff.
Top of the funnel stuff, and then you track that down and you close the client. I'm fascinated, and I mean, you're going to overshare, but have you gone through the math to say when I land a client, this is what it's worth to me because they're around for this long, and this is how much I generate off of them every month?
We are very close, yes.
Okay,
so we typically, I mean, we've only been just under 3 years of a firm, but we used a lot of industry statistics, and we thought we could beat those. So it's like, hey, if the average client stays with their benefit firm for 6 years, we obviously want to be better than that statistic.
Sure.
But we've kind of used that benchmark just because of the time at the firm.
And so have you done the math now that you know, let's say they are with you 6 years or because you're better, because you're Christian, you're 7 years. Have you done the math on what you can afford to spend to attract that initial client because of that?
Not at all.
We did, and it was scary.
Yeah.
Like it was back to like really opening us up. And when we did, and it was like, wow, we should be spending way more money than we are in sales and marketing. Like wildly underspending.
Yeah, but the question, that's a really tough conversation.
Yeah.
Because sales and marketing obviously are two separate engines. And the way you guys have grown at Ballast is through word of mouth, referrals, doing great client work. Clients refer you here. Christian refers you here. Obviously, it's one of your biggest referral sources over here.
That is true.
Yeah.
I'd like to point out, that Christian has sent us 2 clients. He's an amazing person.
Keep going. But no, it's and the what's the word I want to use? The impact of potential dollars after that. So like if you look at the revenue and you look at the referrals. Because a referral's like, oh, you send someone $100 bottle of bourbon, they give you a $6,000.
Yeah, the math doesn't even like
it doesn't matter, right?
No.
But it's like, what other factors or methods of marketing and sales could I utilize or could the firm utilize to have a same or similar impact? And that's a very difficult question because referrals for you guys, and obviously same for us, right? It's such a big impact to the business. What else could you spend money on that's even, not even come close, that's even a tenth of that.
All right, so this is what I hear you, totally agree with you. And this is back to like Jack and I sparring and literally having this conversation with the one client that called me an idiot this morning. I think of it like you walk into an orchard, there's an apple tree in front of you, there's a whole round of apples, and you go and grab them, and that was great. And you're still hungry. So you reach up and you grab the next layer of apples, but it took more work to get there. You've used them all up, all right? Does your business ambitions exceed the first 2 layers of apples? And once they do, those are just the referrals.
Right.
What do you do about it? Do you buy a ladder? Do you move to the next tree? All of those cost money and energy and effort, and they will not be as easy as just walking to that first apple tree and grabbing the apple off the bottom of the rock. They will not. Yeah. For us, it was getting over that hump.
Got it.
It was like, well, yeah, of course that was fun and easy and cheap. But if my ambitions are greater than the 24 apples that I just got off the bottom of that tree, I have to try other things. And we haven't figured it out yet, by the way.
I was going to ask. That was my next question.
No, we haven't. We have not figured it out.
I saw you guys are sponsoring, obviously, Vasios, and you're doing some other things.
Yeah,
Aren't you traveling a lot to DC? And
I was for a while. We're trying everything. So we think about it like everything. we think about it like we'll walk you through the math.
Yeah.
We have a somewhere between 10 and 20% close rate. It's averaging more like 18%. For us to hit our growth plans, 2025, we need to land 2 clients per month on average. We are going to lose 1 client per month on average because we have 1.8% monthly attrition. We have years of data to know that. I know on average I'm going to lose 12 clients this year. I need to land 24 in order for me to grow by 12. So if I've got an 18% close rate, you run up and do the math. You basically I need somewhere between 10 and 15 leads per month, every single month, come top of funnel.
Yeah.
So you're like, all right, where do I find, which sounds like no big deal. You're like, where do I find 120 to 200 potential companies that I'm having conversations with?
Yeah.
And you have to sit down. You're like, well, my network might get us 60. Where do I find the rest of the apples? You know? And so we're trying a few different things. I'm trying to expand our milk. We call it a milk run. Milk run is your network picking up, calling them, texting them, having lunches, having coffees. It's the milk run. It's like comfortable. You've been doing it for a while. They're your friends and family. That works. That gets us to 60. And I was like, well, we got to do more than that. We either have to expand the milk run and bring more people into the fray. In order to do that, Kyle has to take on fewer clients. It's like, I got to drop my client count. I did a little bit of that. Jack's doing a little bit of that. Next, you go, okay, sponsorships, Virginia Council CEOs, big dollars. Like, we're the single largest cash contributor, I think, to Virginia Council CEOs. Like, it's a big check, right? TBD if that was the right call. But I know the math. I know what I spent, and I know what I need top of funnel in order for that math to make sense. You can try things like SEO, you can try SEM, you can try branding and advertising, right? You could try having a podcast, right? Which is like an idea, it's a concept. You can try LinkedIn, you can try email outbound campaigns, right? You could hire a BD or you could hire a junior salesperson. We're going to try it all. I have no choice but to try it all because back to what is my obligation? My obligation is to the clients and my obligation to the employees. My clients do better the more clients we have because we learn from other businesses and we provide that information back to the clients. There's a network effect.
Yeah.
Our employees do better when they have growth and potential and opportunity when we're growing. I cannot stop growing Ballast. I'm stuck. So I have to grow at a minimum of 2 per month top. And like the team is incredibly forgiving. Like if I miss that, they're like, oh, okay, fine. They don't hold me as accountable as I'm holding myself. Right. So I'm trying everything.
Got it.
Literally everything. And then the only thing that I'm checking to make sure that I'm not a total idiot is the relationship between when I do land that client, the value, lifetime value, and my client acquisition cost. As long as that's within a reasonable range, and 4 to 6 is like the math. Yeah. I'm all right.
Excluding or including? Like time and...
Including. So we track time to the 15th minute. Right. My team even makes me do that. Every week I have to report to them the amount of minutes that I spent on BD at cost. Wow. And I know what it cost me to run that.
BD right here.
BD. This will go to BD.
Yes.
And I track it, right? So like that's fine. Here's what I think is the bigger issue, and I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah.
We I think we're like 3 years ahead of you in terms of scale.
4. I think
4 years ahead.
Yeah.
It's easier for me to make those bets because I've got a bigger P&L and I can spend it on those things and go, man, I was wrong.
Yep.
But I remember in the first 3 years, you can't do that without feeling it personally, right? It's a terrible place to be. And what's worse is the advisors and the guides that come to with these like folksy tropes and they're like, well, you really got to take the long-term view. And you're like, fuck you, buddy. Like, you're running a company that's, got 40 million of earnings. Of course you can say that. Like,
and your budget,
do your kids go without when you overspend, you jackass?
Yeah.
Like,
no, they still go to St. Chris.
Yeah, they're still like jerk.
Yeah.
A small business owner is very different. Like that decision to invest,
there's a cost.
It's a sacrifice.
Yeah. Spot on.
It's a sacrifice.
Yeah.
And it hurts.
Yeah. So it's the unknown is really difficult when it's marketing and sales if it's a dollar amount.
I think
it really doesn't make a lot, especially where I am. Like it doesn't make a lot of sense to invest heavily in that arena at this moment. Now, maybe in 4 years we'll be talking again over a beer, and then it'll be like, well, now we have these people, and now we have this outbound.
All right, so this is a fun conversation.
Yeah.
Is that because of the capital that you have, and you would have to make personal sacrifices because you're early in this in order to do that, or is that because the math doesn't make sense?
Definitely number one.
If number two, then take my money.
Well, correct.
And I think that's the point. We go, okay.
The problem is, and you probably do the same thing. I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs. I talk to a lot of our clients, right? We have a very similar network of clients, right? Talk to a ton of business owners, ton of CEOs, ton of advisors. I try to pick people in other states, like their brains about how they group benefit firms, right? I've never heard something that's like, oh, I'm going to invest $5,000 a month because it worked here. No one else can tell me anything that works. Besides,
so the attribution of the spend, they can't tell you.
They can't tell me that, or the fact that there's even a return on investment. So like they can tell me like, hey, referrals work, COIs work, client referrals work, cold outbound works to a very limited certain degree. And then after that, that's why we're doing the podcast.
So you think your rate? So you think your rate of growth is regulated and fixed, and you can only grow at a certain amount organically. So if I gave you $1 million right now, you don't think that would allow you to grow faster?
It would.
It would.
Yes, but more people. It's probably a lot of people driven.
Okay.
Because the tough part with our business, right? Like let's just say a target client, like our target clients are 2,200 employees.
Yep.
Like that's what we've decided. Like that's kind of where we add the most value.
Yep.
And it's like profitable for us. So that 20 to 200 space is like our ideal client profile. It is. We have yet to find methods. Podcasts work some. Referrals obviously work some. COIs will work some. Client, all this stuff works to a certain degree, absolutely. But anything outside of those funnels that can get us first time appointments, first meetings with a target prospect.
You haven't found that yet.
Mm-mm. And if someone does, I'm all ears. But no one else has found that. Like when I'm talking to other benefit firms, they're like, they also haven't found that.
What's fascinating to me about this is there are private equity groups, growth equity, whatever you want to call them, that are entering your space.
So many.
Right? And they're doing
more than ever.
Same with our space.
Yeah.
So like this is they're all doing it. They're doing it because they think they know something you don't, in terms of they think they can find the lever, pull the lever, organically grow. Are they idiots? Probably. Have they found out something you haven't? Is it a lie? Is it really just asset allocation?
Well,
is it that they're just acquiring? Like,
I'll give an example of this. I was at lunch a few weeks ago with the CEO of a private equity insurance firm. So essentially, this guy, all he does, his little job is to acquire benefit firms.
Yep.
Right? So, of course, he loves having lunch with us.
I bet he loves having lunch with
all
you.
that, we had a good
nice
time.
lunch. Yeah.
It was. We had a good time.
Did you slide a number over to him?
Yeah.
Can I be there when you do that?
Absolutely. Yeah. No,
I'm
we're ways
fucking
away from that.
Christian Motion. Here's
But
my number.
we were having some good conversations. He was asking me.
Yeah, they haven't figured it out.
He was asking me what he's like.
Yeah.
Oh, you guys have really grown, and like, how have you grown that much in 3 years?
See, and that's
And
the
I'm
sneaking suspicion that I have. They haven't figured it out. It's just asset allocation for a lot of them, meaning that like they haven't found a way to provide value to the organizations they're purchasing.
Now,
they just have a bunch of capital to put to work, and they're like, we're going to put it to this space.
One of the things that they have done that also is very beneficial is everyone they acquire, all the firms, they do like, I think it's monthly, it might be quarterly, roundtables.
Sure.
So they have all 40 owners,
Sure.
which I do think there's value in that, right? Like what's working in New Jersey, what's working in Florida, but still the idea is like I would say the most creative idea I've ever heard of is like a monthly webinar or like lunch or dinner where you just like blow it out, spend a lot of money on dinner or lunch and invite a bunch of, VP of HR, CFO types, whatever it might be. But I'm like, that's kind of the creative ideas, I guess.
What about you for your business?
It's hard because there's so many different avenues, right? It feels like you said, SEO, blogs, LinkedIn, podcasts, the content, the types of content you create, the places you're sharing the content.
Tone,
they
word
all have,
choice.
They all have different rules. They all have different, gears that'll do this on that, but don't ever do it on that platform and things like that. So it gets really, really complicated really, really fast, I think. I'm in the same boat. I'm still trying to figure it out myself. And I'm still like in that same boat of like, man, do I want to really pony up my money? Because I got wife and kids and diapers and all that kind of stuff. My wife still works too, as well. So it's like we're both just trying to also at the end of the day.
You feel like
right, exactly.
Oh, absolutely.
And then you bring on the responsibility of an employee, and like you said, you feel very responsible for that employee, right?
Do, of course.
So it's like, well, do I make sure that I'm taking care of the employee? Because then, if money's got to go somewhere, if it goes to marketing or sales, a lot of times, well, then where's it going to get cut from? Basically, it feels like in the early stages. I feel like so, but I think we are in a place though where I think the consumer, this is a marketing guy talking, the consumer is very savvy when there's a true paid ad coming in front of them.
Yeah.
And like I saw this statistic about like Google search basically and Google search AdWords and things like that, which I think can be effective. But like the statistic was like you're more likely to die in a plane crash than you are to click on a like ad, like an ad on like Google search basically, and convert to that basically. So it's really hard. But I think and why I like the podcast too as well, it's like it gives me to be more authentic, right?
Sure.
It allows people to like see who I am. And kind of create this parasocial relationship with me almost.
Just a long ROI.
It is, yeah. It's a long game. But in some ways, it's like talking's easy. It doesn't have to cost me. I don't have to hire a crazy wizard or someone who's super smart in this. Like, I'll just talk, right? I'll just sit down, have conversations, get to know me, and that's it. I'm not having to plug away at some other crazy algorithm or try and hack that. I was like, I'm just going to have conversations, and I know it does well. And I know for me particularly, I know video does best. That's my space in particular. So, but at the end of the day, it is really hard. I don't have it quite figured out yet.
But you also want, and you guys do such a good job with this, at being the person with the most value add. And so, like, a big reason why we created the podcast was because, like, it's a value. Like, you're coming on. We would not have spent 2 hours together on a Friday. Yeah. You would have said, I'm too busy, Christian, even though you're our biggest referral source. But seriously, it's also, like, high.
It's a recent award?
Yeah. But it's a value add. So, like, our clients, some of the CEOs of our clients, and, like, I even made a LinkedIn post today. Mm-hmm. Where I asked people, I was like, hey, if you know a CEO that wants to be on this podcast, and there was like 3 people who commented like, oh, this CEO, and that's obviously a really good way for us to start the conversation at least.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of phonies out there.
A lot.
And they have more money than us. No, I'm like, that's the thing that really pisses me off. It's like we, Ballast, you, we all provide a lot of value to our clients. There's a lot of bullshit artists out there, and they have fat wallets because they're outside funded, and they will just burn money trying to find that seam within that coal mine.
Yeah.
And that's who we're competing against. And that is a frustrating thing, because if I wanted to look like one of them, and I would have to spend an exorbitant amount of money to look like them.
But on what? Like, what are they spending an exorbitant? Like, one of your competitors. What are they spending an exorbitant amount of money? Because for me, the only thing I can think of they're doing in my space is people.
They're doing more sponsorships. They have salespeople. Yep. They're doing more robust website management. They're doing social media campaigns. They're doing cold outreach, email. Phone.
Doing it all.
They're spending on ads. I mean, you put your credit card into Google for just SEO and SEM, and you're out $500 to $1,500 a month, right?
Easy.
You do the same thing on Bing, although people generally don't use it. And then you could start doing the exact same thing with Instagram. You can do it with TikTok for advertising. I mean, I could spend $30,000 to $50,000 a month on all of that to maybe start to look like them. Mm-hmm. And it would be like, holy shit, like that's a lot. I can't afford to spend $30,000 or $50,000 a month to look like them.
Right.
Yeah.
That's frustrating.
Right. And you wouldn't see an immediate return on that investment. It's going to take time. It's going to take time for people to see that content, get it to them, like, okay, still convert. So it's not like even when you invest in something like Google search, don't expect your first 3 months to have a return on that. You still have to play a long game, even with paid sales and paid marketing and things like that. So
it's just funny because when I sat down, you guys, you said, "Oh, you guys have been growing. You've been doing really well. You seem like you've been very successful." And I'll sit down and have lunch. And somebody like, "Oh my God, it looks like you guys have been doing so well." And I'm like, "Why do you think that?" And they're like, "Well, I've been seeing a lot of posts on LinkedIn." And you're like, "It's interesting, right? Because I didn't do that post. Our marketing firm did the post, and there was a lot of time and effort spent and money and cost doing that, right? The fact that we're posting more, it doesn't mean we're more successful.
Right.
It just means I freed up the budget to spend money to talk about how successful we already were. Mm-hmm. So there's this like feedback loop where you go, there's something to this. Mm-hmm. And I hate that. But we have to do it. Yeah. It's wild.
For me, it was a little more tied into Jack. But
it was what?
A little bit more tied into Jack as far as like, keeping tabs and understanding like the hires and the budget. Pretty cool stuff. It was funny you say about the Google ads. Hilarious story. They got me good when I open up BenX. They got
You were like,
me.
if I just spend this.
Oh my gosh!
Right.
No, I opened up BenX because I thought I read if I signed up, I'd get a free $500 of credit.
Right.
That was true, but it's like month 3.
Amazing.
So I get this charge on my credit card, and I'm like, what the $500? This is like when I first started BenX, and I was like, there's no way. There's no what's going. Like we're not even making money yet.
Yeah.
No.
Oh man.
You
Yeah.
could spend an exorbitant amount of money with Google and get absolutely nothing out
Same
of
with
it.
LinkedIn.
And eventually you get large enough where it is just a tax you have to pay. And that's really what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awful.
I'm going to be really fascinated to hear about the sponsorships that you guys are doing. How that, like, in the next 2 to 3 years is going to play a factor.
I think it's tough. And I'm going to open and tell you this. Like, when we sat down with Scott at Virginia Council CEOs, he was like, don't sell. Like, if you start selling, I'm going to kick you out. I was like, I'm here to sell. And he's like, I know you're here to sell. I'm like, I'm spending a lot of money. It's a big spot. He's like, yep. He's like, but you know what? We don't, like, the members really don't like sponsors. Like, you guys are in here, you come in, you throw some money around, you want to land clients, and you all want quick ROI. And he was super cool about it. He was like, don't fucking do that. And there was that moment of like, I already sent you my check.
Yeah.
Like, whoa, this is going to take a long time. And I get it, because on the other side of this, like, to your point, no one likes being sold to.
No.
No one likes it.
No.
Right? So I'm not a member to the Virginia Council.
Right.
I'm a sponsor.
Right.
They all know why I'm there.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So you're like, wow, how do I show that I'm truly authentically just trying to help them with their business?
As a sponsor.
Right.
As a sponsor, this is a unique thing, and it's very difficult to
Yes.
navigate, right?
Yeah.
And I'm happy that Scott was blunt and honest with me about that. But at the same time, it was a hard reality, a hard
Right.
truth, you know?
Yeah.
It's tough.
No one likes being sold, but I think my sales coach told me like no one likes being sold, but everyone loves buying. So it's like when you're in that position where like, yeah, I want to buy something. How can I help them realize this is great to buy, you know? And like throw that on top. Sure, let's do that. But being sold, no one likes being sold to.
We've decided not to sell, meaning we create a lot of awareness. We have a lot of conversations with people. Very early on, we said, whatever comes top of funnel, we're not going to try and close. It's not the goal. It's not. So whatever the close rate ends up being, not the goal. Let's give them a bunch of free advice. Let's help them with their business. If it's a fit, maybe that's a good idea. The goal is not to close. And it worked. And it worked because 8 out of 10 of the ones that came in that weren't a fit maybe become a fit later, or they go out there and talk about us, right? But like I'll stick to that method. And maybe that limits my growth because I could land more and grow faster and somewhere not a great fit, but I got him in there and landed him, you know?
Right.
That's why I'm always hesitant, and this is the conversation we're having now. Should we get a salesperson? It's like Kyle's very valuable. He should be spending his time doing other things. Let's get a salesperson. Let's free him up. It's like the minute we do that, is that person going to be able to consult the client and give a bunch of free advice?
No.
Right. No.
That person's sole job would probably be to put you in front of client or
Correct.
like someone
Right.
else, right?
And then it's like, okay, well, then I need them to be legitimate, kind, authentic, develop relationships, love that, and then hand it over as quickly as possible.
Right.
Right. Because if I want to continue to do that, I really want to sit down. I mean, I've never met an entrepreneur where I'm like, hey, tell me about your business. How can I help? You know?
Yeah.
What's going on? What are your issues? What are your problems? What are you trying to achieve? Don't talk to that person. Talk to this person. I don't gate contacts.
Right.
Like, I just want to help, right?
Yeah.
And I think there's value to that. But I think it's a slower
Burn.
I think it's a slower burn, man.
Yeah.
But it's also the clients that come in and hopefully you guys kill it and then they become raving fans. I think that's also if you take a client on and it's either not the right fit or you force them in or whatever it might be, could be a bad experience overall.
We've also learned that people love solving other people's problems. So when you are great for a client and you help them, right? Someone comes to them with a problem. They want to be like, here's the person to call.
Yeah.
This will fix your problem.
Yeah.
And so back to you, like you keep using the term COI, centers of influence. I assume that's what you're, the trick to that is finding people who actually give a shit. Like finding people who also just want to help other people build their businesses, you know? And I think that's a really important part of it.
Yeah.
And you find those people and they're genuine and authentic and they're real and you can have conversations with them. That works. I'll say this. There is not a single client that I have that has ever brought up benefits administration that I don't put your name in front of. I say
Thank
that.
you. Yeah.
I'm like, you haven't, I don't think you've landed a client from us. No, but I try every time. If I push harder than that, it doesn't happen.
Of course. Yeah.
Right.
And the reason is because I know you're not going to sell them.
Yeah.
I know that about you already. If I put them in front of you, you're not going to be like, oh, I'm going to get a client. They're going to ask you a bunch of questions. You're going to provide them a bunch of free advice. And you're going to be like, that would be cool if I got them as a client, I guess, one day. You're like, that's just who you are, right?
Yeah.
And it makes it very comfortable for me to send you every single person I meet that ever says, I need to talk to someone about benefits.
Right.
And I think that's the trick.
Yeah.
And my hope, and I'll close it out on this, my hope is that the phonies and the outside capital and the corporate wonks who think they're entrepreneurs and they're not and they're overspending, fuck them. And eventually we're going to just blow past them organically, right? Passionately, authentically.
Yeah.
Fuck them. Like eventually, I'm sorry, like, I hope that all of it just done.
Yeah.
And there we are. Like the true entrepreneurs that finally got through it, that didn't use the outside capital. And there's nothing wrong with using outside capital. There's really not. But when you're using it to burn it and you're convincing everyone in the world that you're a genius and that's not really what's going on, I think it's phony.
Yeah.
And I hope that we're standing there.
People, I mean, it's amazing how people who don't know business, they look at a fundraising effort as revenue.
I know.
They're like, oh, $7 million. That founder's rich.
You're
I'm
like, I'm not sure that's how that works.
I don't think.
The best startup founders we have, and most of our startup founders are incredible at this. They're like, I have an obligation. I just raised money. I need to create more value than the dollars I just put in. The one where you're like, that's the right approach.
Yeah.
It's the ones where they just keep chasing dollars, and you'll meet them when they come in your funnel. We try and get them out early. It's like, what are you going to do with the money? And they're like, well, I just want to raise money. And you're like, oh, okay, here we go. Right? Like that's one of the filters that we have. Those are the ones that I'm referring to.
Right. And then flip in 3 years, whatever the firm is.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah. This has been awesome.
It's been great.
Yeah. What are we going to do this afternoon? What else we got going on?
Beers?
Yeah, I can do beer.
Yeah.
We got to get Tom. Am I allowed to use his name?
Oh, yeah.
Tom,
our engineer.
let's get a beer, man. Tom
Well-
looks like he drinks beer.
Yeah, exactly.
Tom, do you drink beer?
Oh, yeah.
All right.
There we go. He's in.
All right.
He's
All
in.
right.
He's in.
My treat. That's a cheap cack.
There we go.
It is yeah, it's really cheap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Should we do our last two real quick?
Yes. Yes.
We got the last
Totally
two questions. So one
Yeah.
thing we do for our show is we ask every guest who comes on the show, what's a nonprofit that they support, that they are close to, or that they want to shout out, because we give a small donation to that nonprofit. So the question is there a nonprofit you'd like to give a shout out for?
So Satya is a friend of ours, and he put us in touch with MedHome Plus, MHP. Now, we support them every single year. Super important. Love them. Look them up. And the second one is Beyond Boundaries. So Jack is on their board. Jordan's on their board.
That's a great event.
And we do a ton of work for Beyond Boundaries. Love them to pieces.
Right.
So it's not one, it's two. I'm sorry. But those are the two nonprofits we support.
Right.
And then our team, we have a budget of hours, and they are able to donate hours every single year to a nonprofit of their choice.
Yeah.
So we don't care what they choose. We just want them out there doing things within the community that
Make
back
it
to
better.
like life fulfilling.
Yep. That's
See
great.
people at the grocery store.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
Love that. Love
And
that.
then last question is from Vasios. It's from the Virginia Council of CEOs. And the question is, as a CEO, it can be lonely at the top.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that challenge?
Don't build an organization where you're sitting at the top. Like this comes back to like stop doing that. I don't want to be in that lonely place. So there's not this hierarchical structure. I hate that like people are like, oh, the CEO. The only reason my title is CEO is because I was a co-founder of the business. Let's not kid ourselves. There's no one elected me CEO. Right. I just was dumb enough to take this massive risk. Jack didn't build, we didn't build this hierarchical structure where we're sitting at the top. We built a team around us. We're engaged together. It's the only way to fight the loneliness. Because if you build that hierarchical structure, you're going to be sitting at the top of that thing alone. And that would not be a place I'd want to be.
No. It's a good point. I've never heard of a company that's not publicly traded that discloses their financials like that. Do you have
I would love
suppliers
to
that
tell
do
you it was my idea. It was Jack's idea.
Yeah.
It was Jack's idea. It was like, we need to do this. Here's why it was a really big risk. Our team is really good with financials, it turns out, because
They're
right. So yeah, they dug in, right? I mean, they really understood our business. We were really opening ourselves up. But it comes back to trust and creating that transparency with them. And we wanted them to trust the decisions that we were making. And if you're obscuring your financials with a group like that, there's absolutely no way. No way. We also tie a portion of their bonus to company-wide performance. which was hard for us, right?
Yeah.
It's hard for the it's hard for the reasons you wouldn't think. People think it's hard because now when you do really well, you have to share that with your employees. I love doing that. Why it's hard is because when you make a bad decision, it hurts the employees. Why it's hard is because now all of a sudden you're held accountable to all of your spend, to your employees. And that is difficult.
Yeah.
Because most entrepreneurs know they're just like, yep.
Right.
I don't like what I make is what I make. I don't want the team to know.
Right.
Every dollar I spend impacts the team's bonus.
Yeah.
And that really flipped it on us because all of a sudden people are like, what are you doing traveling to DC this week, Kyle?
You're bringing in some rev.
Yeah, I'm trying.
Yeah, come on. Someone's got to do it. Please.
Amazing. Kyle, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, this was
this
great.
has been a
So
great
much.
conversation. Thank you for joining us. This was great. Yeah.
Yeah. If you want to find them, where can people find Ballast? Website, social media?
Yeah, website, social media, Google, Yahoo. You can reach out to me directly. It's a long email though, so just go to our website and then find me, and then you
Perfect.
can shoot me a note.
Cool.
Great.
Yeah, people are like, "Whoa, he's going to give a bunch of free advice." I'm going to get like all these inbounds. I'm going to be like coaching a lot of people. In their
Yeah.
business, aren't I?
Well, if you do, it worked.
There you go. It worked. Exactly.
People are an hour 30 in, just
Yeah.
hanging.
Just hanging.
You're going to edit this down, right?
A little bit, I'm sure.
Maybe.
Yeah. Maybe.
Maybe.
Maybe the cursing. Probably the cursing.
No.
We'll see. No, we'll leave that in. We keep it casual, keep it authentic.
Yeah.
But Kyle, thanks. It's been
Yeah,
awesome.
thanks, man.
Thank you so much.